Aloha. We come from the island of Maui, where, believe it or not, people still get migraines. So today's talk is going to be about migraines, and they're a special kind of headache. It's possible that other kinds of headaches might respond to the types of things that I'm talking about, but really today is about migraines. So, as not to embarrass anyone, could people in the crowd who do not get migraines raise their hand? Okay, so there's going to be maybe 50-50 people who get migraines. Good, because I hope that I can help. I've got a lot of different ways to deal with migraines. I am not a medical doctor despite the white coat. I'm a research scientist. I just completed a research trial on nutrition versus Alzheimer's disease, and we won. Very exciting. We managed to get people with better memory and better thinking abilities through nutrition. For migraines, it's very personal. There are trigger foods that are just personal for each person, so you have to learn your own. And I think migraines are a perfect thing where you want to be your own doctor. You want to heal yourself. Good sleep is really important. Stress raises your risk of a migraine, and probably other headaches too. And skipped meals is a huge factor. Low blood sugar really tends to push migraines on people. I have never really gotten migraines, but I got some really bad headaches until I gave up dairy many decades ago, and then I mysteriously never got another headache. Anti-inflammatory vegetables, fruits, and beans are really important because inflammation plays a big role in migraines, as it does play somewhat of a role in Alzheimer's disease, many other neurodegenerative diseases. Inflammation is part of atherosclerosis, leading to heart attacks and strokes. Inflammation is something we need to keep under control and not let our immune system just get out of hand. I'm going to tell you about a miracle herb that, when compared with one of the most useful drugs for migraines, worked just as well, but that drug had side effects ranging from mild to death. And ginger, you know, might warm your belly a little bit, but doesn't have any bad side effects. Migraines really occur when the brain is overexcited. Brain cells you can think of them as half full is the best way a brain cell can be. If it gets to where it's almost going to trigger, that's an excitable state. And if a lot of brain cells are almost going to trigger, you can get epilepsy or migraine headaches out of that. On the other hand, if the brain cells are too low in energy and it takes too much to get them to trigger, well, then you might have problems with memory and thinking and low energy in the brain in general. So getting the excitability of the brain cells just right, and a lot of Americans like an excitable brain. I mean, people will hammer down 2 or 3 or 4 cups of coffee in the morning, and that definitely leads to an excitable brain. There are some medical plants like feverfew and butterbur that have been used throughout the centuries. Feverfew is pretty safe. Butterbur, if it's PA-free, without pyrrolizidine alkaloids, then it is really a good solution for migraines. But you have to be very careful that it's free of those things which can damage your liver. Has anyone heard of magnesium for migraines? Magnesium is when you have a muscle and the muscle wants to contract, calcium is what's used. And when the muscle wants to relax, it's magnesium. So you can see where magnesium comes into relaxing the brain a little bit too. Magnesium is safe, essential mineral for human beings. If you take too much, okay, it has a laxative effect. It's easy to find out what too much is, but it doesn't really hurt you. In some cases, that might even be helpful. Who knows? Vitamin B2 and coenzyme Q10. I'll tell you about those for migraine. Alpha-lipoic acid, Tiger Balm. If you wanted a really quick relief to a headache, Tiger Balm's nice because you just rub it on your forehead and you get results within seconds instead of having to wait for a long period of time. There are some stronger balms that you can use on your head to ease pain too. And don't forget regular aerobic exercise. And that has a couple of effects. Studies have shown that it really does help with migraine headaches. And one reason is that you sleep better if you exercise. Aerobic exercise reduces stress, which is related to migraines, and it helps you sleep better and longer, which is also related to migraines. The word migraine comes from the word that means half of your head, but it varies between migraine sufferers whether it's going to hurt part of your head or the whole head. Migraines usually, they recur periodically. Some people have them a dozen times a month. And if they last from a day to 4 days, that's a lot of migraines. And typically a migraine is where your head is pounding and light hurts your eyes. There may be accompanied by nausea. It's a really nasty headache, and it'd be really good to have them less frequently and to have them be less severe. And that's why I'm here today. It's to try and get them less frequently and less severe. Usually when people have a migraine, they feel like hiding in a dark room. Movement is usually not comfortable because any movement will raise blood pressure and the pounding in the head can get worse. There's a migraine aura that some people experience. About a third of people with migraines get an aura. And the aura could be a hearing, auditory aura, or a visual aura. Some people have a smell that they smell before a headache. The aura generally comes before the headache. Some people experience only the aura and no headache. 37 million Americans, 1 billion people worldwide get migraines. That's a lot of people with sore heads. Migraines involve both nerves and blood flow in the brain. And I read the scientific literature, and I must say that of all the neurologic disorders, the understanding of how migraines exactly work is the least understood. I mean, we know more about Alzheimer's disease than we do about how migraines actually work. I'm going to try and describe to you, I talked about the excitability factor, and that's definitely one of them. The trigeminal nerves of the face, this guy in the picture here, these are the trigeminal nerves here. And they're the ones that eventually, when the headache occurs, transmit the pain up into the brain. Oh, it's also interesting that 18% of women get migraines and only 6% of men. And the reason is that, this sounds funny, estrogen is protective. But when estrogen drops, migraines can be triggered. So there are menstrual migraines that are kind of periodic, and they seem to respond especially well to getting enough magnesium and a lot of the other factors I'll discuss today. I got a map of migraines around the world. In some places, like Western Europe, they're 5 times as common as in rural Africa. Why is that? It's not really breaking along racial lines. It's not really genetic. Could it be that some of the things I'm going to describe as triggers are eaten a lot more in these red places than they are in the yellow and orange places? It's not really all that genetic, not all that inheritable. You inherit a vulnerability to migraines, but there might be a way, by learning your triggers and using all the things you can do, to stop them. I'll mention I have one slide on migraine drugs, and I think it's reasonable to talk about them briefly. Botox injections are very popular. I think as a last resort, if nothing else works, it can be okay, but remember, Botox can have side effects. If they miss and do the injection in the wrong place, it can have problems like droopy eyelids and things. Then there's over-the-counter brain pills, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, better known as Advil and Tylenol. They're commonly used for migraines, and they're kind of effective, but they each have side effects. With Advil, you have to worry about your stomach, and if you're going to get an upset stomach from it. And with Tylenol, you have to worry that your liver could get damaged if you eat too much. And every year, it seems like they reduce the allowable dose for no liver damage with Tylenol. One strategy is to switch off between the two and just do a little damage to the stomach and then a little to the liver. But hopefully we can do better than that. Triptans are very commonly used when the headache pain is coming on and you want to beat that pain. Sumatriptan with naproxen is a real common one. They reduce blood vessel inflammation, and they also constrict the blood vessels a little, which is why they get some of their side effects, because a lot of Americans have atherosclerosis and their blood vessels are already pretty constricted, and they might be tightened up further by an imbalance in fatty acids, too much omega-6, too little omega-3. So sometimes it can be fatal to tighten up those blood vessels. And ergotamine constricts blood vessels even more, can stop a migraine, but can't be used with people with any kind of cardiovascular disorder. And that's ruling out a lot of Americans. Metoprolol can prevent migraines by lowering blood pressure. I talked about that pounding in the head from blood pressure. Well, if you lower blood pressure, that can relieve some of that pounding effect. And then there's valproate and topiramate. They have anticonvulsant actions. And anticonvulsant actions mean that they're lowering the excitability of the brain cells, so they don't trigger so easily. You now get a beautiful picture to relax your brain. I don't want anyone to get a headache from my headache talk. This is a sunset in San Blas, Mexico, and it was pretty spectacular. The triggers are really what start the migraine going. And it usually takes a combination of triggers to get a migraine going for people. Some people are sensitive to red wine, lack of sleep, and skipped meals are very common triggers. If you skip a meal, you're low on sleep, have a glass of red wine, then that could just push you over the edge into a migraine. So always when you think of triggers, think about combining the triggers. Or think about not combining the triggers so that you don't get a migraine. Now here's the part where I'm giving you the best science as I can understand it, and even our migraine expert neurologist at Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience reading through this was really unable to completely confirm this is the way it happens. It's just the best way in the next few slides that I thought understanding it's a good idea. The excitability and the low magnesium perhaps come first. And then a trigger can increase the exciting neurotransmitter glutamate and reduce the calming neurotransmitter GABA, that's gamma-aminobutyric acid. A wave of excitability can pass through the brain. That's when the aura happens. This is before the migraine. This wave of excitability can be called spreading cortical depression, or maybe more properly, spreading cortical hyperactivity. At this point, the blood vessels are constricted, and it's later on that they become enlarged. So you have two problems, and that's one of the keys to why caffeine sometimes helps and sometimes hurts. It depends on if your blood vessels are in a constricted or a relaxed state. When the spreading cortical depolarization spreads through your brain, what then happens is that too many cells kick off, and they can't open up the blood vessels to recharge themselves, and they wind up being in a very vulnerable, low state of excitability. So this is the first step. And what can you do? Reduce excitability of the brain, less stress, more relaxation, hot baths, pets, love, all the good stuff, and maintain your magnesium levels. Magnesium is commonly found in green vegetables. So green vegetables are so good in so many ways. Think green when, make your dinner and lunch surround something green. Make that the center portion. Here's a picture of menstrual migraines. When that estrogen drops here, that can be a trigger, or later on in the cycle, can be a trigger for a menstrual migraine. And sometimes at least they're predictable and you know when you're going to get them. But with all of the techniques I'll talk about today, it may be that you can lower the frequency and severity, and my hope would be no more migraines at all. That's always my goal. So the food triggers activate the brain membrane. There's a membrane around the brain, and the food triggers, most of them can't cross the blood-brain barrier, so they have to kind of go at it externally to cause this problem. And I'm going to talk about neuropeptides and inflammation. Now, part of my talk today will be on inflammation and how to reduce that in general in the body and specifically in the brain. I made up a little flow diagram for you. So you got the trigger, and then if there's too little magnesium, excess glutamate, brain cells are too excitable, maybe from coffee, lack of sleep, skipped meals, and then dropping estrogen levels, then you get this excessive brain electrical activity. From that, the blood vessels constrict, and blood vessels are opened up again by brain cells with nitric oxide, which opens the blood vessels, and the brain cells will give this to the blood vessels to say, I need more glucose, I need more nutrients to recharge myself, because it takes energy for a brain cell to recharge. But nitric oxide is restricted in this cortical spreading depression. The other thing that brain cells do to open up blood vessels is make prostacyclin. Prostacyclin is an eicosanoid in the omega-6 class, but it opens up very powerfully blood vessels, very locally. And then the trigeminal neurons release the neuropeptides. I give the name there. I don't know if it's necessary for you to know the names of the neuropeptides. We'll just call them neuropeptides for today. When they're released, they increase the swelling of brain membranes, the surrounding membranes of the brain. And then with this nerve inflammation, pain is transmitted to the trigeminal nerve and sensed in the cortex. So avoiding triggers and avoiding vasodilation at this point would be a good thing. This is the point at which ginger or maybe even caffeine would be helpful. And then the last couple of steps here, serotonin levels drop and the blood vessels actually get a little bit leaky and there's more neuropeptides and it kind of builds on itself. More inflammation, more neuropeptides, more headache. And this depends on how long the migraine lasts. If you're really good at resolving the inflammation, maybe only 4 hours. If not, it could go up to 3 days of a migraine, which is certainly not a good situation. Okay, you get another pretty picture. I think this was taken in the Sea of Cortez at a little anchorage off a little-known island from our boat sojourn. Okay, now this is a general how to reduce frequency and severity of migraines. First of all, get good sleep. Now, for me, the best recipe for sleep is exercise. If you want to sleep well, work out. If you don't work out, you probably won't sleep well. So that's number one. Stress management is really a good idea. In my healing medicine book, I've got a nice chapter on stress management. There's so many different ways to find out what's stressing you, react perhaps differently. Don't get stressed if you can avoid it. Anyway, work on your stress so that you're not so stressed out, and that's bound to help with migraines and have a more pleasant life as well, of course. Then there's pain medications. There's no doubt that they're needed at times. If you have a true migraine, you're probably going to want some pain medication. My goal would be for you not to reach for that bottle as often and eventually have that bottle become like my Advil bottle, stuck in a drawer somewhere, forgotten, moldy. I'm going to talk mostly about dietary modification today. Oh, a diary is really a good idea. Keep a diary. When you get a migraine, write down how bad the migraine is, how long it lasts. Were there any stressors before that? What foods did you eat in the last day or two? Because it could be 24-hour delay for foods. Did you get any odors within the last hour before the migraine? Odors can trigger it, usually fairly quickly. So keep a diary, and that'll help you track it down. You can do this, but your doctor can't. Because you're you, and you can keep this diary. So it's really important to do that because you're Sherlock Holmes on this, and you're going to track down what it is that's giving you these headaches. Non-food triggers, cigarette smoke's a common one. I know secondhand smoke kind of bothers me. In San Francisco, if you walk down the street, everybody's outside smoking, so you get whiffs of smoke, and that can trigger a migraine. Loud noise can trigger a migraine. Bright or flickering lights. Bumper flashes on the freeway are famous for triggering migraines. Wraparound sunglasses with polarization can eliminate that trigger. So there's some easy solutions for some of these things. Stress and anxiety. Skipped meals, I'll show you the numbers on that. It's huge. Skipping meals is a really big factor in that. When you skip a meal and you start going hypoglycemic, your body can raise the adrenal hormones up, like cortisol, and it becomes overstimulating. Bizarrely enough, there's a long list of medications, including some migraine medication, that cause more migraines. It would be a good idea for you to review your medications with your doctor or pharmacist or both and find out if any of them are triggering your migraines. And your diary should include medications so you can track that down. Now, migraine sufferers are called migraineurs. I don't know why, but it's kind of a classy French name, so you get something good out of having migraines there. 76% of migraineurs respond to perfume. And a lot of people who suffer from migraines can't go in Macy's or other stores where perfume is in the air. So watch out for odors that could trigger it. Paint, 42%. Cigarettes, 34%. Gasoline and bleach are both about a third of migraineurs suffer from migraines from these common substances. It's a little hard to avoid gasoline fumes if you're filling up your car. You know, you can stand upwind, the hexane generally goes up because it's lighter than air that comes off the gasoline nozzle. So if you squat down when you fill your gas tank, you can avoid some of that, maybe avoid a migraine right there. But figure out which of these things are triggering you uniquely and avoid them. Perfume's a tough one. In an elevator or something, you can really be stuck. Skip meals in a couple of studies, and you'll see that I'm putting some of the sources like the Clinical Journal of Pain 2009 for these studies. Skip meals and fastings were migraine triggers in over 56% in a population-based study, 40 to 57% in clinic-based studies. So figure about 50% of migraines are from skipped meals. So what's the solution? Let me think. Hey, don't skip meals. So how to do that, especially with all the junk food out there, is carry your snacks with you. Come prepared. I got some Mac nuts in my bag and, you know, a few other little things to eat if I get really hungry to avoid eating junk. Fruit's always an excellent snack and pretty easy to carry around with you. I mentioned the mechanism by fasting and skipping meals can trigger headaches. It might be serotonin or norepinephrine or the release of stress hormones such as cortisol. Not exactly sure why, but we know it's a fact. 5 times more likely to get a migraine if you're obese. No one in this room is obese, so congratulations for keeping your weight under control. I know as we get older it gets a little bit harder. But if you know someone with a migraine and they are also very overweight, it may be that losing weight will not only reduce their migraines or eliminate them, but it could also save their life from a heart attack or a stroke or diabetes and all the other complications of overweightness. Yeah, that OR of 5.53, the odds ratio of 5.53 is pretty high in scientific studies. It's pretty rare to find something that raises your risk 5 times, 500% more risk. So staying slim and active is part of it, part of being healthy in general. Remember that the food triggers can trigger 24 hours after you eat them. That makes it necessary to keep a food diary unless your memory is super sharp. To remember everything you ate that day before. You know, who knows? It could be the one particular food that triggers you. And if you avoid that food, you might be able to avoid your migraines, which to me is what it's all about. There are elimination diets for migraines where they eliminate common triggers. Common dietary triggers. Alcohol. About 1/3 of people react to alcohol with a migraine. Chocolate. Unfortunately, it's wonderful stuff, but about 1/5 of people react to chocolate with a migraine. Cheese, it varies a lot, but maybe up to 1/5 of people react to cheese for a migraine. Caffeine, which sometimes can help a migraine in the later stages, can also trigger a migraine in the earlier stages. And monosodium glutamate is thought to act very much like our glutamate neurotransmitter and overstimulate the brain, cause the Chinese restaurant syndrome headaches. And it is often a combination of substances that does it. Remember, you might need several, so it makes it hard to track it down. So we've got fasting, hunger, skipped meals. Up to 82% of people get migraines from this. So I'd say that'd be your #1 thing to do today from this talk is not to skip any more meals. Make sure you're nourished, take snacks with you, and just, you know, keep track of that one. Red wine, dehydration is a big one. You got to stay hydrated in order to keep yourself away from migraines. And I know in Maui, you really need a lot of water because it's a hot place and it's humid, and you tend to lose a lot of water, so you have to keep drinking it. Coffee, chocolate, caffeine. Now, it's fascinating that ice cream is a trigger in only 5% of adults, but 55% of children. So if you know a child with pediatric migraine, really better watch out for ice cream. These studies were all done with normal dairy ice cream. It would be interesting to see if switching to almond-based ice cream or soy-based ice cream would possibly not trigger a migraine. And you can do this. You know, you're in charge of checking these things. Nitrates, hot dogs, red meat can trigger it. I mentioned monosodium glutamate, and I'll mention aspartame again. These elimination diets, they have a long word for it, oligoantigenic diet. You love the long words. I think they're fun. They eliminate migraines by eliminating all the common triggers and going down to a very basic diet. Now, this is a good strategy. You could, for instance, just eat brown rice and spinach and a few beans and, drink water and just eat that for a few days. And if you don't get any migraines, that's the key. Then you can add one food back for a whole week. Wait, just with that one food added. If you don't get any migraines, keep eating it. If you do, of course, you've found a trigger. So this is a very scientific way to Sherlock Holmes your way out of migraines. This was a really fascinating study. It's a vegan diet without triggers. The number of things they eliminated on this diet, I think, is really staggering. They eliminated wheat, corn, soy, peanuts, citrus, apples, bananas, all the nightshades like potatoes and tomatoes, yams, animal food of all kinds, totally vegan, no nuts, no chocolate, no tea, no alcohol. It makes you think, what could they eat? Well, oats and rice, lentils, blueberries, a lot of fruits and vegetables were allowed, and you could sweeten with brown rice syrup or maple syrup. This was a crossover trial. So the first part of the trial, they had group A on this elimination diet that sounds almost impossible to stick to, right? But their migraines went down dramatically. So when it was time to cross over, they said, okay, you people who've been eating the elimination diet, now you go back to your regular diet. Guess what? They wouldn't do it. They refused. They all dropped out of the study and kept on this impossible diet because it fixed their migraines. And then the other group went on the elimination diet, and they had similar results. But the controlled group had no reduction in their migraines. So this is one way to do it, is eliminate down to a very basic diet, and then you can add in your favorite foods one at a time to see which ones are causing trouble, which ones are not. They did a study, and 68% of the participants had 50% or greater reduction in their headaches. So it cut their headaches in half in more than 2/3 of the people in the study just to avoid histamine. Now, where's it found? I like numbers with my lists. So I made this list up for you. Cheese, fish, champagne, cheese, salami, and then to a smaller extent, sausage, fish, cheese, fish, and fermented ham has a little. So if you did drop out cheese and fish, for instance, from your diet, it might be that your migraines went away. And you don't have to try it forever, but if you did try it for a while, if you're a histamine reactor, it might be a good idea, especially to avoid, Swiss cheese and sardines at least, and see if your migraines go away, because they have so much of this. And histamine, you know what histamine is. It's an inflammatory substance in the human body, but it also can be eaten. Tyramine's another one. Tyramine was also found in aged cheese, cured meat, smoked fish, and in fermented foods, including beer and yeast extract. So staying away from fermented foods, aged cheese, and cured meats like bacon and sausage and salami and that sort of thing, that might be the key to your migraines. So I just want to mention many things that you can try, because I really don't want anyone to get another migraine. How likely do you think it is that sirens can cause a migraine? It's probably, some people would react to that. I know we had someone in our neuroscience clinic come in, and he lived next to a fire station. And he said, I can't sleep at night. Well, we tracked it down. Aspartame is a well-known sweetener. NutraSweet's one of the brand names, and it's very common in sweetened beverages. You might want to stay away from this, at least for a period of time, and then re-challenge to see if it makes your migraines worse, because it's been widely reported to be a migraine trigger. It's, in the studies, it's looking like it's going to take like 7 sodas sweetened with aspartame to trigger most migraine. So it might be possible to sneak in a little bit of aspartame without getting to a migraine trigger. On the other hand, it is a strange substance without any real value except sweetness, and you might want to avoid it entirely. I know I do. MSG, you can get Chinese food without MSG. It's a good idea to ask them if they have MSG. You can call them up before you go and just find out, because Chinese food is generally very, very healthy, and it's wonderful food. But if MSG is your trigger, and it can trigger other headaches besides migraines, then you want to stay away from it. And MSG is found in a lot of things. If you look on a table, there's a joke. How many vegans does it take to change a light bulb? It takes one to screw in the light bulb, but wait, first the other one has to read the ingredients. So when you read the ingredients, it won't say monosodium glutamate. It might say hydrolyzed vegetable protein, or sodium caseinate, or autolyzed yeast, or hydrolyzed oat flour, texturized protein, calcium caseinate. I've seen calcium caseinate on a lot of foods, including vegan foods. And if that means it's got MSG in it, then you might want to avoid that. So it's good to know these names so you can avoid MSG. Nitrate. I don't know how many hot dog lovers there are in here, but the meat producers realized two things. They couldn't sell meat if it was gray and looked like roadkill. It's just not popular for food. So they made it bright red. They also couldn't sell meat if people got botulism and died. And so they put nitrites in them, they put nitrates in them, and they turned to nitrites. And they can turn to nitrosamines in the stomach and be cancer formers too. Not a real healthy addition to foods. Cured meat, smoked fish. Some people develop migraines within minutes after eating the red hot dogs. So it might be a good idea. It could be sodium nitrate or sodium nitrite, potassium nitrate or potassium nitrite. These might be things to avoid in your diet until you learn whether or not they're migraine triggers. Red wine can trigger migraines. It's a very common trigger. And I'll show you a graph. It has tyramine, sulfates, and histamine. So with all of these possible triggering substances in it, it's possible it could trigger your migraine. As an alternative to red wine, you might try freshly made grape juice, where you take the actual grapes and run them through a juicer and put it in a wine glass, and you'll find a substance so delicious that makes you feel so good, you'll wonder why anybody ever aged the stuff, made it ferment and make these substances. Caffeine, of course, can trigger migraines, and a constant stream of caffeinated beverages and teas and coffees can definitely lead to more migraines. So you might consider alternative beverages. Ginger tea is a really good one because ginger tea is stimulating, and yet ginger tea fights migraines, as I'll talk about in just a minute. So I made a little chart here. The losers, well, alcohol has histamine, tyramine, and in beer, and red meat has histamine, tyramine, and nitrite, and cheese has histamine and tyramine, and fish has all three if it's smoked especially, and pickled food. So those are the general categories that have the most things that can trigger a migraine. This is Flat Rock Pool, and it's about a 5-minute walk from my house. And we live on an organic farm in Maui, and I kind of miss it right now. We grow avocados and papayas and bananas and all that good stuff. And when my head gets to steaming, I dunk it in this pool, and it cools it right off. You know, cold water is a really nice migraine aid, too. Either cold water or ice packs can really help with a migraine, especially in the later stages of a migraine. So don't forget good old hydrotherapy. Perhaps putting your feet in cold water might help with a migraine, too. There's a cheap, healthful solution, whether or not you need to add ice cubes to your foot bath. It could really help with a migraine. It's possible that hot water as a foot bath might help a migraine. In this case, opening up all the capillaries in your feet might lower your blood pressure and draw some pressure out of your brain. Okay, now we'll go to solutions. I mentioned this study to our expert in migraines, a neurologist, wonderful man, and he was amazed. But he wasn't doubtful because it's a blinded, randomized clinical trial. There are 100 migraine patients, and ginger worked as well as the most powerful drug used for migraines, sumatriptan. It was 1/8 of a teaspoon of ginger powder. We're talking maybe 4 cents worth of ginger here. Really a tiny amount. An alternative would be to slice the fresh ginger root thinly, put it into a big pot of water, simmer it for maybe 20 minutes, and you have ginger tea, ginger root tea, which could be very helpful for your migraine. Ginger is anti-nausea, one of the most powerful. As a sailor, I can attest to it. And the anti-nausea could be very valuable in a migraine as well. 44% migraine-free, and 56% had mild pain instead of major pain. That's a pretty good fix for migraines. And ginger is so easy available. Side effects of sumatriptan can go from mild to completely dead. And the side effects of ginger are good. Normalized blood pressure, that's one of the way it works. Lowering fats in the blood. Reduction of blood sugar. So ginger is a really healthful alternative to sumatriptan. So next time, if you get a migraine and you're going to reach for the sumatriptan, you might try the ginger first. And as far as I know, there's no interaction. If the ginger didn't work, 5 minutes later, you could go ahead and reach for the sumatriptan. So at least you could try it and see if it's going to help. Ginger seemed to reduce that calcitonin gene-related peptide. These are neuropeptides, reducing inflammation similar to the way the drug did it. It also reduced inflammatory leukotrienes. And I mean, this is fascinating stuff. It might be a little late in the afternoon for some hard science, but what the heck, here you are. There's an enzyme called phospholipase, and phospholipase A. And it will go to the membrane of cells, and it'll snip off some phospholipids. And these phospholipids have fatty acids on them, typically arachidonic acid or eicosapentaenoic acid, the EPA, the famous in fish oil. So when it snips off these, then they become, and in most people arachidonic acid is prevalent, so they are then made into inflammatory leukotrienes through the interesting mediator of hydroperoxyeicosapentaenoic acid. You can remember that word, it's a good one. And then they become inflammatory leukotrienes. Also painful things are made from those too. So one of the things ginger does is suppress this enzyme so less of the precursors to the inflammatory and painful eicosanoids are pulled from the cell membranes. Anyway, it works, so you can try it. Yes? Is this preventative or? Ginger is usually taken at onset of the headache because it tends to tighten up and help. It's more of a, as you're just starting to feel the migraine, that would be the key, and then during the migraine to stop it. Just like sumatriptan, pretty much the same idea. I don't know. It would be preventive in the case that you drank coffee in the morning and at noon, say, and you switched to ginger tea, so then you wouldn't be getting caffeine. You would still be getting the stimulation of the ginger, though, so you would feel lively. And that might be a nice switch to lower stress and excitability in the brain. So in that case, it would be preventive because it reduced one of the excitability factors in your life. Also, in the morning, take a hot tub instead of watching the news, especially during the election cycle. We won't go there. Here's another friendly herb, lavender. Now, in one study, they took 10 drops of lavender internally. You have to dilute lavender to take it internally, and it's a little bit scary to take an essential oil, even very gentle lavender internally. Another study showed that just rubbing lavender oil on your head and under your nose and inhaling the lavender oil really helped with a headache. What a wonderful aromatic way to beat a headache. And there's some pretty good science showing that it's working. Magnesium is very clearly something that people need. It's an essential daily macronutrient that we need. And we need about 500 milligrams per day. When I analyze diets with my Diet Doctor software, and I've got a few copies with me if you want to analyze your diet, I think many people in this room will recognize that the nutrition in our food is of primary importance to our health. It's pretty easy to say. And yet, we're guessing at how much protein we're getting. We're guessing at how much calcium we're getting. We're guessing at how much magnesium we're getting. But instead of that, why not look at your diet, quantify how much magnesium you're getting. If you're already getting 500 to 1,000 from your diet, you don't need magnesium pills. Well, you save some money right there. If you aren't getting enough, then you do need some magnesium pills and more green vegetables, too. A deficiency of magnesium, particularly important in menstrual migraines. A couple of double-blind placebo-controlled trials have shown that oral magnesium supplementation in humans is a headache prevention. And this is a prevention we're looking for. And keep that up on a daily basis. Make sure you get at least 500 milligrams. And again, if you take too much, you'd be running to the bathroom, so it's really easy to know. It doesn't really hurt you, but there's a clear indication of too much magnesium. In fact, milk of magnesia is used for that purpose, right? So here's some nice sources. Spinach, 157 milligrams per serving. Sunflower seeds, 117 milligrams, and peanut butter, favorite, 102 milligrams. If you had these three things in a day, you get almost your 400 milligrams that you need for that day. And hopefully you'll eat a few other things too during that day. Delicious medicine, I call it. Yeah, I feel sorry. Doctors, the pills they give out, they don't even taste good. I want to mention inflammation and pain and omega-3s. They're really tightly related. There are eicosanoids made from omega-6. The thromboxanes can constrict arteries. Now, that can be part of the migraine. Well, as I mentioned, there are other omega-6 prostacyclin that are eicosanoids that open up arteries, so it's not that simple. One study combined reducing omega-6s with increasing omega-3s, and they got some good results with headaches. In 12 weeks, participants had greater improvement in their headaches compared to the participants who reduced omega-6 but didn't get enough omega-3. Well, when I run diets through the diet doctor, I find very, very commonly omega-6 is too high, omega-3 is too low. This is kind of how it works. Oils have too much omega-6. That's one reason why bottled oils are a little bit problematical. And this in our body is turned into arachidonic acid. Turkey, chicken, and eggs have a large amount of arachidonic acid, which of course is already arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is blocked, in the next slide, by Advil or other NSAIDs. This blocks the arachidonic acid from becoming painful. But going back to the first slide, why eat the arachidonic acid in the first place and then try and block it with an Advil or an aspirin or a Celebrex or whatever you're taking? Doesn't really make much sense. And yet, a lot of people in their path toward health, they drop the red meats and they're all proud of themselves. Now I just eat turkey and chicken, and lots of cheese, and aren't I healthy? But then they find out about all the arachidonic acid in the turkey, chicken, and eggs, and when they drop that, wow. In arthritis, people are walking twice as far in a week of dropping these inflammatory substances. It's a lot like a drug that damages you instead of helping you. EPA, of course, is made from omega-3s, and it's eicosapentaenoic acid. Icosa just means 20. That's how long it is. That's how many carbons. And penta means that there's 5 double bonds in it. Penta is Latin for 5. So that's kind of how it works. And these enzymes create pain and inflammation if you have arachidonic acid and less if you don't. So keeping your omega-6 down, which means less bottled oils, is one way to do it. Keeping your omega-3s up, well, we'll talk about that next. We can make just the right amount if we have just well-nourished. Walnuts are a really nice source of omega-3 fatty acids. Then there's chia seeds, flax seeds, perilla seeds, and hemp seeds, all good sources of omega-3s. You probably already know that. Make sure every day you get some of these. Any one you like is fine, but you want to get some of these omega-3s, which make eicosanoids that reduce inflammation, that reduce pain. The omega-3s actively go the other way and reduce the pain and inflammation. So you want to make sure you get those and not too much of the omega-6s. Now, looking at inflammation in the body, one of the ways it's triggered is with meat, chicken, and dairy products. And the way this works is we know that in meat, chicken, or dairy products, there's a lot of bacteria. If you don't kill a bacteria, you're going to get sick. So our industry kills the bacteria. It's dead when you get it, or you'd be sick. But the little leftover skeletons of those bacteria, the endotoxins or lipopolysaccharides, are left over in these foods. And with a high-fat food like these are, they'll be absorbed into your bloodstream, and once in the bloodstream, cause inflammation for 2 to 3 hours. So bacon and eggs for breakfast, you got the arachidonic acid from the eggs, the bacon, you've got the endotoxins. For hours, your inflammation levels will go up, including in your brain. And then, what's for lunch? A McDonald's burger. Okay, more endotoxins, a cheeseburger, even more. And that can keep you inflamed till almost dinner time, when a lot of Americans will eat more animal products, more cheese, and more endotoxins, keeping the inflammation in the body high all day long, maybe with a relief at night. Then there's some nice natural things like turmeric that fight inflammation. The best way to get turmeric is in a curry. cook a bunch of vegetables and put in tablespoons of curry powder. Make sure and include some black pepper so the piperin can help the curcuminoids get into the bloodstream. And you have yourself a healthy, delicious meal that's powerfully anti-inflammatory and very widely used in the Ayurvedic tradition. Indole 3 carbanols inhibit cytokines and nuclear factor kappa B, and they're found in cabbage, kale, tea, green tea, and Brussels sprouts and broccoli, that whole, kale, broccoli, cauliflower family. And they're anti-inflammatories. They're also anti-cancers. They put these indole 3 carbinol in Petri dishes full of cancer cells and regular cells, and the cancer cells die off and the regular cells don't. So it's a really good idea to eat these vegetables. So the kale craze is maybe one of the best crazes in the health food fad industry. Oh, you get another restful slide. This is Sojourn. And my wife and I that's my wife Catherine over there with the cute little French hat on. She's the cook in the family and she keeps me healthy, which is a good thing because I'm well into my Medicaid years and I'm really happy I don't need any Medicaid. So we spent 5.5 years on this sailboat. And I wrote some books and we visited 100 anchorages and ports. Okay, now back to work. Riboflavin is vitamin B2, and that's the one that makes your pee yellow or green, that one. It's essential for membrane stability and the production of energy, and well-demised, randomized controlled clinical trial, the gold-plated medical trials, they used 400 milligrams of riboflavin for 3 months. They had a 50% reduction in attacks, migraine attacks, in 59% of patients. So almost 2/3 of the patients had their migraines cut in half. And it's a B vitamin. It's safe, it's cheap, it's easy to get. And only 15% of the placebo got better because they thought they might be taking the good stuff. There's no toxicity, there's no upper limit set for vitamin B2, so why not, if you get migraines, take some extra B2? I can't think of a reason. But I'll tell you more about how it works. And David Kominskas, Dr. Kominskas, a neurologist I work with, says, how does B2 work? And so I looked in my own textbook. I wrote a college textbook from McGraw-Hill on vitamins and minerals in the Demystified series, if you've heard of that series. And I checked it out, and riboflavin plays a role in the elimination of toxins and drugs. And we know a lot of drugs trigger migraines, so that's a good one. It's needed to recharge antioxidants, especially glutathione peroxidase. Yes, oh, that's a good one. It can reduce inflammation in the meningeal membrane surrounding the brain, and it can reduce sensitivity to light, which is a lot part of migraine. So good idea to get this essential daily B vitamin, perhaps in a larger quantity than most people need it. Here's another one, coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10 is the only fat-soluble antioxidant that humans make inside of our bodies. If people are on statins, now this is such a healthy crowd, I wonder how many people are not on statin drugs? How many people are not taking statins? Raise your hand proudly if you're not. Wow, I think that's the best I've ever seen. They look like 90%. And yet with the elders in our clinic, the people we see, much more than half of them are taking statin drugs. When you take statin drugs, which technically are hydroxymethylglutaryl coenzyme A reductase inhibitors, that's a mouthful, what they do is they stop the production of cholesterol in the body, they reduce it, and they reduce the production of coenzyme Q10 in the body, about 40%. So you're not able to make energy properly, and you're not able to protect your brain, and this damage to the brain can result in migraine. So taking coenzyme Q10 as a pill or a chewable is a possibility. It might be especially protective for kids, but I did use coenzyme Q10 as one of the 16 modalities in my recent trial, the Hawaii Dementia Prevention Trial, which was very successful. And I know coenzyme Q10 was only part of that success, and yet I think it's important for us to either, well, very few of you are taking statins. If you are taking statins, coenzyme Q10 is essential to take. If you're not, but you're older, you might consider taking it as part of your supplementation schedule. If you get migraines, you might consider it more seriously. The Academy of Neurology, the American Academy of Neurology, very conservative when it comes to non-drug approaches, concluded that coenzyme Q10 is possibly effective for migraine prophylaxis, that means prevention, in adults. They did open-label prospective study for 4 months, and it showed promising results. So no reason not to take it, no known contraindications, conflicts, or side effects, and some good reasons to take it to reduce neurodegeneration in general. Alpha-lipoic acid is another antioxidant that is not quite a B vitamin, but maybe should be because we don't always make as much as we should. It showed a reduction in migraine attack frequency and reduced headache severity as well. So alpha-lipoic acid is widely used as a safe supplement. And feverfew is one of the herbs used for thousands of years for migraine headaches, and it seems to work. Isn't it bizarre that feverfew and all other herbal remedies are not used by modern medical doctors and not approved by HMOs? In other countries, they are. In India or Europe, feverfew would be, or other herbs would be one of the first things that practitioners would think of. But in America, they're kind of left out. And I'm not exactly sure why. It's not really damaging. It has an anti-inflammatory action, a little like ginger in stopping that phospholipase A from pulling out the arachidonic acid and starting the inflammatory cycles. They did a multi-center, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, the 170 participants, and that was reported in the headache magazine, Cephalalgia. And they found that just 6 milligrams 3 times a day, they used this MIG-99, which is a really nice extract of feverfew. They had a relevant reduction in migraine frequency. It's well tolerated, and the American Academy of Neurology agrees that it might possibly be effective, which is really big for a pharmaceutical-financed academy to say. Hope they didn't get in trouble for that. Now, butterbur is very helpful for migraines, but it contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids that are very toxic. So in order to save your liver from toxicity, you have to get the PA-free butterbur, and you might even want to get the Petadolex. I wrote the brand name down here, Petadolex. Disclaimer, no, I don't have any interest financially in Petadolex. But it's the one that's used in a lot of the studies on migraines, and it's standardized. And when working with herbal medicine, it's a good idea to have a standardized extract so you know that you're getting what you need out of it, because some leaves have more or less depending on sunlight, nutrition of the plant, and all the other factors that can influence what constituent a plant has in it. Another randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial, they used 50 milligrams of butterbur twice a day, and again, they reduced the migraines quite a bit. And again, they used Petadolex in that study. One more study, 77% of all patients reported a reduction in migraine frequency of at least half. They cut their migraines down by half in 3/4 of the people. And this is a plant that's not expensive, not damaging if it's PA-free. So it's something you might consider if you have migraines or even other headaches. This works on any kind of headache. For quick relief, you might consider either Tiger Balm or this stuff, Dr. Christopher's concentrated herbal heating balm, it used to be called. Now it's called Cayenne Heat Ointment. It's kind of this bright red stuff, and don't get it in your eyes or any sensitive part of your body. It's really hot stuff. But when put on the forehead, it just knocks a headache out really fast. I think you might need to get that one online from Christopher Distributing, but it's one of my favorites. Tiger Balm and many other heating balms will also help with a headache, so you can pick out one that you like. Has anyone here ever taken emergency drinks? Those little packets that you pour them in and they fizz for a while. It's an ascorbated vitamin C drink, and it seems to be very helpful for headaches. I don't have double-blind studies on this, but I know that I've tried it many times, and it always seems to help kind of clear up my head. It's a nice antioxidant, kind of refreshing, rejuvenating, cleansing drink. As an alternative, maybe amla would be the only berry that I know that's as powerful as vitamin C in refreshing and cleansing a body. Amla is a berry used in Ayurvedic tradition. There's some alternative migraine remedies that can be used. Acupuncture can be helpful. Massage can be very helpful. Sometimes people are carrying a lot of tension in their shoulders and neck and head. And if you get a good massage therapist who's careful and can work you over and keep you loose, that might reduce your stress and your migraine headaches. I mentioned aerobic exercise. Of course, be careful at the start of an aerobic program. Starting with a marathon is probably not a good idea. You want to build up little by little. And I kind of have a rule for myself that until I've run the same distance at least 4 or 5 times, I don't want to extend that distance. And then I'll extend it a little, maybe a fifth, and run that far. I always want to go further. I don't know why. But you have to hold yourself back from too much cardiovascular motion. There are biofeedback machines where you can hook yourself up and control the dilation of your blood vessels. And so there are doctors who specialize in this, and sometimes you put your fingers in and it senses temperature. And so by allowing your capillaries to open, you increase the temperature, and you can watch it on a screen, and you can find out that you're actually alleviating your blood pressure. And so there are different types of biofeedback that can be helpful with migraine. You can investigate that. Progressive relaxation is, if you just sit down and wait to relax, it can take a while. It can take forever. You might not relax. But progressive relaxation is active relaxation. Autogenic training also helps you to actively relax. Once you learn these techniques, in 5 minutes, I used to do this. I'd go, I'd leave the office, lay down outside on a wall, do autogenic training for 5 minutes. I'd come in and everyone would say, "Did you just take a nap?" Because my face got all relaxed and my whole body. And it's pretty simple. With progressive relaxation, you would tighten your feet, and then as you breathe very deeply, you relax your feet and kind of feel secure and safe. And there's a whole technique to it. Then you move to your ankles and your legs and so on throughout your body, tensing and relaxing your body. And this can very powerfully relax you. In my book, Healing Medicine, I mentioned how to do this and some of the others. It's non-denominational, non-secular, so you don't have to join a cult or anything to do it. You just have to, but you learn how to relax yourself in a few minutes. It's really, I think grammar schools should all teach this stuff. And yoga's really nice too. Yoga's a great way to relax and stretch. Some of the postures where you're going more upside down can get a lot of refreshing blood flow to the brain and help you out there too. So I want to go over some of the things we mentioned today. You've been almost too good an audience, not enough questions. You want to avoid trigger foods and odors, learn yours, keep a diary, figure out what's giving you those migraines and avoid them. Get good sleep every night. The key is exercise and no skipped meals. People ask me, what should I take to get a good sleep at night? And I say, well, you can wash the windows, clean the floors, go out and work in the garden, take a bicycle ride, run, swim. In other words, get active. Anti-inflammatory vegetables, fruits, and beans. And also look at the omega-3s and the omega-6s in your diet. Make sure and get some omega-3s every day. Walnuts, flax seeds, perilla seeds, or hemp or chia seeds every day. And to keep your omega-6s down, watch out for turkey, chicken, and eggs. And also reduce the quantity of bottled oils that you're taking as much as you can. Feverfew and butterbur, really fun. Oh, and don't forget to check if caffeine is, how many people in this room never drink caffeine, never take caffeine in any form? Wow, well that's amazing. It's nice that I'm not the only person in this room. I usually am. But with Americans, still 90% of you are using caffeine. So even in this super healthy crowd, those of you who have migraines and are using caffeine, you might consider, switch to ginger tea for ginger or ginseng tea or something for a while and see if that helps your migraines. You might just do it. So we got feverfew and butterfew, magnesium, vitamin B2, and coenzyme Q10. Lots of ideas for prevention and maintenance to keep those away. Alpha-lipoic acid as an antioxidant. Tiger balm and vitamin C is a last-minute stopgap. Good, we have a question. You can make your own ascorbate with ascorbic acid crystals and baking soda. 2 parts acid to 1 part soda. And what we use is an 1/8 of a teaspoon measure. And we take an 1/8 of a teaspoon twice with the the ascorbic acid and once with the baking powder. You put it in water and it fizzes, and you have your own ascorbic drink. It's like an emergency, but it's cheaper and it doesn't have all the sugar and flavorings. The baking soda provides the base to offset the acid, so it becomes neutral in pH. And you can use other things too, but baking soda is cheap and available and easy. So thank you very much. Thanks very much. It's enthusiastic. Let's hear it for no more headaches.